Hello and welcome to The Dive presented by Honda Season 5, Episode 14. I'm not going to try and do 14 with my fingers because these critics over here will tear me to pieces. Azael's still hungover from casting that banger series that we just had yesterday, and Mark is always some level of grumpy. So
I thought you were about to say Azael's still hungover from partying or something. You know, I was like, and I thought you were going to say, and Mark's still just hungover.
First half, huh?
You had two great setups. You didn't hit on either of them. It was two pulled punches.
Well, he's gonna call me hungover, call me out on the dive live.
the COVID quarantine after parties for finals are definitely a banger.
It was popping.
Ordering some sushi with Joanne.
We got that
sat
Zoom
on the
call
couch with
going.
us. It was pretty sick.
Honestly, we got a lot to celebrate, though. That was a super fun weekend, finals weekend that we had. Really good. We got to be back in person again on stage. We got to have, honestly, I was actually worried for the analysts that were on the main stage with Dash up there. You guys, especially in the opening, was uncomfortable. I liked how Raz was really owning it. He was like power stance,
leg
up on the
Morgan
next
stance.
level. And then you had like Mark or James and Emily were like all the way at the back, like I don't want to get close to the edge. And then and Mark was like kind of middle ground, you know, chilling there in his jean jacket. He was like rocking it. I like it.
It was funny because I initially had a suit that I'd taken from wardrobe when we did like our testing for vaccines that I snagged, and then I was going to wear a suit. And then I got there, and you know, the first day they did it on the ground floor level, and then the second day we did it on top of all the stuff. And I was like, I can't wear a suit up there. I'll look so out of place in like this suit, standing like I'm on a boy band, you know, like on top of my monitor. So I luckily brought a change of wardrobe. I brought a suitcase, you know, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm wearing the jean jacket today. All right.
Let's go.
But it was fun.
You've been waiting for your moment to wear the jean jacket for years.
I wore it on the dive a couple times. Always get comments after. I knew it was going to bang.
He's definitely had that fit before. And nobody fell off. I was happy nobody actually.
Was that something you were expecting? They're not on a tightrope.
We're also
it
not
looked
physical
precarious.
People. And to be fair, there was a more sturdy part, which is like the step ups, and it's like actual. You know, stuff you're supposed to stand on. And then there was like the top of the monitors in front of us. And, you know, I put a little weight on one of those and it was just like, and I was like, okay, never step forward. Got it.
My favorite part was actually the giant screens behind you when they would put players' faces on it.
I was so tempted to try and pick someone's nose.
It had these big zoom ins. It definitely had some good stuff. Yeah, we had that. We had wildlife. You know, the day before we had our deer join us. And when
got Lilia,
when me and Frick had to talk through the pause. So there was just so much fun. Much fun.
I was talking a lot with Flowers because we were obviously at the studio.
Foggy Woggy.
Foggy Woggy. It was definitely. It just feels nice to like actually be there in person. I'm sure it was the same for you, Kobe. But it's like we were casting from where you saw us when we were on camera. Like we were just standing looking at a monitor. But you can like we're kind of far apart. But you could see the person and like actually use hand signals and like feed off each other's energy when they're getting excited.
I was trying to do something to Freak, and you know, because the distance was kind of long, and you're looking. The monitor is like a little triangle between you. I had to like lean out. I almost fell off that step.
Yeah, I was reaching like whole hands out. I wasn't using fingers anymore. I'm like, wow, let me tell you know. So it was fun though, man. Even though it really was like the casters were in the studio, the analysts, you guys were obviously on site. You know, it was me, Flowers, and the sound guy, Joey, who was there, and we're hanging out. So it wasn't like we were in some big popping crowd or whatever, but it felt good. It felt good to be out of the house. It felt good to be seeing you guys on stage, to see the players there. It was really cool, you know, even seeing the coaches behind and seeing Bjergsen. Like it felt like the first time I was like, hey, Bjergsen's actually a coach. You know, like it kind of like really sunk in for me. And that was something that I realized I kind of missed. Like it was cool seeing Jad up there again. Obviously we had seen him before, but just like it's such a big part of the experience for me, you know, seeing the players' faces, seeing these moments with them walking out, like Perks waving to no crowd and like blowing kisses and stuff. Like I fucking loved that shit.
I mean, it felt like
you know, sprinting to the trophy. Like, that was great. You don't get that if they're at home.
It felt like we woke up from our, year-long coma that we've been in.
Yeah.
And remembered, what it used to be like. There were so many things, even when we're like setting up our stations, and I'm like, wait, we used to also have laptops where we could look stuff up and have spectator slots. Can we get those? And everyone was like, oh yeah, we did, didn't we? It's like
back before the dark ages.
Like, oh yeah, we did used to do all this stuff. Yeah.
We used to be able to drink water and see friends.
I used to be able to order people around backstage to bring me more Red Bulls. Now I just have to yell at my cats. It's not the same.
You know what else I was glad to see, though, from this weekend? Honestly, in the end, I think it is nice that Cloud9 won again and get to go after not getting to go in 2020. It did feel like that was kind of filling in the last little bit of they really do, deserve it. Not all the same players are there because they did, Niski flew off back to LEC. But it definitely feels good for the organization. Jack was tweeting out, this is the first time that we get to go to MSI after some of the things that people are saying, but it's the second time that we qualified.
Yeah. I mean, the only other time they won spring before last year was pre-MSI existing, right? Yeah. It was the like international all-star event or whatever it was called, like the Paris All-Stars when they won in 2014.
I had lung issues then.
Yep. Oh yeah, true. So they didn't even really get to actually do that. So it's definitely cool to see them go. I too feel like, okay, yeah, it feels somewhat fitting that they missed out last year. They should get to go this year. But at the same time, I know if I was on TL, I would be heartbroken. Yeah. If I was Santorin, I would be heartbroken. Like, the fact that he didn't get to play just sucks on a personal level after you work the whole year towards it. And whether or not the series would have gone better or not, it's really hard to know, right? Like it just is hard to know. You assume that they would play better with Armeo, but Armeo did great across this weekend. Either way, shitty situation, but really happy for Cloud9 and excited to see what they'll be able to really bring us as an MSI rep, because they have a good track record internationally. I think that they could definitely make a splash here. So I'm actually just so excited.
It would also not feel good if it didn't feel like they earned it. And I think through that full best of 5 and the previous one, it really feels like they earned it. So we get the good top off on the story as well as they earned it.
They beat both versions. They beat Santorin version earlier. Now they beat Armeo version.
That's why to me it doesn't feel as bad.
It's true, yeah. Also, go ahead. I was going to say, did you guys have anything else you want to touch on that? We're going some of the global news before we get really into the series. Sweet. All right. Well, LEC also, I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I mean, I was kind of watching on my phone a bit. Obviously, it went over into once our show started. But the reverse sweep from Mad Lions was pretty crazy. That's definitely a heartbreaker for Rogue. For Odoamne, who's waited like 7 years, I think it is, to finally get to a finals. He had his emotional interview. They're up 2-0. And they, from what I had seen, felt like they were in a commanding position in a lot of those games. So to let them slip away and get reverse swept is pretty brutal for Rogue. But, both these teams, I think, are really seeking some international redemption. Both of them had awful showings at Worlds. Rogue went, 1-5 or 0-6 in groups. Mad tied for last in play-ins, won the tiebreaker, and then got knocked out in the first round of the best of 5s. Didn't even get to the qualifying round for Worlds. It was the first major region team to ever actually get knocked out there. So, both these teams, I think, are really hungry for redemption, have improved, I think, a lot from last year as well. And as someone who is not an LEC, person who's casting LEC, like I can get if you're really hardcore LEC that you're just like, no, just send G2. I know they'll do well. But from the outside perspective, I'm like, this is cool. I think it's exciting to see someone that's not just, Fnatic and G2. All right, which one wins this time? Because that's what EU has been always. They had one non-Fnatic or G2 winner ever, and it was Alliance in 2014, 2013 or something like that. So I was really excited to see some new blood coming up. I think it's really, really cool.
You can go, Mark.
I was gonna say, old kings have been slain, new kings taken over. It's a new era, you know. I'm excited.
Yes, kings, dynasties.
No, but on a serious point, I do think it's cool that you can kind of track the org's improvement, like you're saying, from Worlds, which was obviously a disappointment for both of them.
Yeah.
And then, yes, like C9, we were talking about, like the rosters have had some turnover, but a large portion of the cores are the same. And so it is cool to see them get, you know, another shot here. In Rogue, yeah, they ended up falling a little short, but like based off how they're looking, you probably expect to see them at Worlds again too. So like I do think it's really cool, and this is one of the things that I think has always made the LEC interesting, is that it does feel like there's always someone just behind the best teams, like waiting to take them down and being really close. And sometimes that talent just ends up on the top teams. We've seen that before as well. But it does feel like there's this constant like pressure from the bottom, which is really cool to see.
I would say that I mean, I agree they have a way better pool of rookie talent, and there's constantly, you know, new talent coming up. But I would not agree that there's constant pressure from the bottom on the top two teams. Fnatic and G2 have won everything, and that's what the whole story is about, that there hasn't been this constant pressure, you know, and that's why everyone's, you know, so used to seeing those two teams and those same players, Caps, Reckless, you know, all these guys all the time over and over, and they have had changes, but to the earlier point that you guys are making about Rogue and Mad improving, they also both did significant changes to their rosters. For, you know, Rogue, bringing in Odoamne was so big for them, and how they incorporated him and improved, from last year's Worlds. But Mad literally took Armut, who kicked them out of Worlds, to improve their team.
Yeah,
they absorbed his power in order to get an international appearance again and win an EU LCS title. I thought that was the coolest thing, especially since Armut, the Wukong pick, ended up being so pivotal in turning around their reverse sweep here. So honestly, in my the weekend that I went over to LEC, one of the players I was most impressed with was doing my research on Elyoya, the young jungler from the Spanish league. This guy, he has so much style with which he also is able to dominate the jungle. He had way earlier in the season a Kayn game, 12 kill carry Kayn game. And it was after getting counter jungled in the opener into just a single quadrant. So he's forced into one of those, I've cleared all my camps and I got counter jungled on the other half of the map, so I have to go for a gank. But then the gank works out on bottom side, and then he ends up, racking up 12 kills with the blue Kayn. So I'm super excited for this team, because Mad Lions is also the team that has more young talent than Rogue. I know a lot of the conversation was around next generation and rookies and stuff like that. I felt like the Rogue team actually has mostly more senior members with Odoamne, and then we did see Inspired and Larson and stuff last year. And it was Trimby, carrying the rookie flag for that team. But Mad Lions definitely with I feel like more of that young energy.
Mark, it looked like you wanted to get in when Kobe was disagreeing about the pressure from the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of 5-game series that these teams have had to play over the course of like their runs, where you go all the way back to like the Origin stuff, a couple of years ago, right when G2 I think was starting to begin their dominance. And I think like even just in terms of like the churn that you see, I feel like on those top teams is still pretty significant. And that's what I was kind of alluding to with like sometimes that talent just ends up on them, whether that's self-made, Bwipo, like pushing out the staples. There was Sven and Mithy, way back in the day with Trick on G2, and while G2 has stayed at the top the entire team, literally the entire roster has changed around them. There was the Hjarn and Wadid era. Like there's these different eras that I think you see them go through a little bit more, and that's all I was saying. I mean, Kobe's absolutely right. It's two teams. That's why the story is what the story is. But I still feel like I see a lot of new faces at Worlds every year, whether that's Vitality joining them or whatever, because there's always that third team too at Worlds who's not one of those two.
And I know people are going to be like, shut up, Kobe, you can't talk. You're from NA. You have 0 new people. You have like 3 new good players. Okay.
Oh my God, like, licorice.
Yeah, well, true. Also, we're working on it. We're developing NA talent, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's always interesting, right? And I feel like in a way, it's always been like the cusp of it, right? Like where, to your point, Mark, where it's like there's a new European team coming up that feel like they're putting on pressure. Sometimes they do better than G2 or Fnatic in the regular season. We saw that last year, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, G2 has been knocked down multiple times to the lower bracket, and all these things happen. But you're like, yeah, but at the end of the day, G2 is going to win though.
Yeah.
And this was the first time it was like, hey, actually, no, they're not. And also Fnatic's already out. Like, so that was what hammered it home and made it interesting. I feel like it's similar in the way that in NA, where like there's often times where we're like, oh, do we have like a 4th or a 5th team this year that are really going to challenge? It's like the TSM, C9, TL. It's been a long time since CLG was really up there. And like this year, people were like, oh, 100 Thieves. And then Dig was popping off at the start. We're like, oh man, Dignitas in there too. We got 5. And then it's kind of like, oh, just kidding. And they kind of got the bop by the top 3, and we got the top 3 again. So it is like, it's good to have those first steps, those teams getting challenged, even if it doesn't, fully result in a big mix-up. Obviously, we had FlyQuest last year, which disrupted things, but then that's why I was kind of sad that they lost
imploded.
Yeah. And again, I could see where people are going to come back at me as being from NA.
Kobe's sweating. He's
no. Because my point is, you need to look at the LPL. That's my example. This is a choose your champion fight, okay, guys. And I'm choosing my champion to fight the fight as the LPL because. That's where I feel like if I was picking one region for
LPL is nuts. Can't argue that. Yeah. LCK, they have their representative Damwon. I don't know if you guys watched the LCK playoffs. I watched every series. I feel like I can confidently say it was the most boring playoffs I've ever seen of a major region.
Yeah,
there was almost no kills or action any game in any series. Damwon, I knew they were going to win from like week 1 of spring. So like I was really uninterested in the LCK, and it's not because Damwon is not incredible. They are. It was like because they were so much better than the rest of the league that it never felt like I never felt for a moment that people were going to challenge them in playoffs. And I was sad that I was right about that. And it's kind of sad in the way that a lot of the games went, just that it felt like basically every game in LCK is one team kind of goes a little bit earlier, one team goes for a little bit later. The team that goes a little bit more early game is trying to stack the dragons, stack the gold lead, and the other team is just farming. They don't really go for a lot of aggressive plays. Like I was looking at the K+A averages, it was like half of the other major regions in playoffs. Like there is just no action whatsoever. It's just 2 teams farming it out, one team getting slight advantages, then you fight at the 3rd dragon and you see who wins the game.
I was going to ask, when did you, because I know you're watching it on VODs, because we all, none of us are going to stay up all night to watch all those things live. When did you start watching the VODs? Because the one other story that I did have a moment of hype for was after SKT won their first series, and I was like, okay, all right, you'll Faker back. Maybe we get some Damwon SKT finals, and I was like getting built up, and then that one got cut off really early.
They got slammed, right?
SKT got kicked out, and after that was.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was fun to watch that series. I watched every single playoff series. So like,
I just mean the timing matters, because if you started watching the VODs after you already saw the next SKT series when you knew they were out, then I would understand that you didn't have any excitement for it.
Yeah. I think I watched it after SKT. Yeah, I already knew Gen.G stomped them. But yeah, I was just kind of sad. LCK, like I like their playoff format more now though. I think the Gauntlet was garbage that they had for years and years, where it's like, you're going to get to see 3 games of our best team because they're not in it till the end, and then they're going to win. And and that always felt bad to me. At least we got to see 2 series of Damwon, and yes, it was only 6 games. Yes, they super blasted. But it was still cool to get to see more of them. And, I do think that in a world where teams are a little bit closer, you get some really incredible playoff series. So I'm happy that they changed it up. I think their format's a lot better now.
Yeah. I watched some of the Gen.G Damwon won, and it was rough. I hope it's not the case where, like you're saying, that they bring this place out over the Worlds or MSI and they struggle because of it, which kind of happened during that 2018 collapse. It was a similar story then heading into it. That they just played a different style than a lot of the other teams, and they didn't really adapt well. But I also think there's been times where, like, Griffin was that way when they were really good and they had insane laners and they had insane pressure, and they actually didn't have that many kills, but they would kind of dominate you. And that's kind of what it reminds me of, is that it's like a lot of like choking you out with talent, and less like, I think it's on the teams that are losing to like upset the status quo, and they just feel like they have no moves to make. And it does lead to pretty boring games when you see that too.
I'm not worried at all about Damwon bringing boring games or slow style over to MSI, so I don't have any of these worries.
I mean, I think that they're the favorites to win MSI.
Yeah,
I think that they look absolutely bulletproof. Me saying that the playoffs were uninteresting is nothing to do with the level of this team. I think that they're, looking incredible. You can argue that they're like a less interesting team or less flexible team because they no longer have Nuguri, right? They have Khan instead, and like the whole Sion one trick thing that they're always talking about, like how much he is playing tanks. It's not as explosive of a play style. So I think that's part of it, is that they lost one of their most proactive members. Like this guy was going to go crazy in the top lane and play more of these crazy picks. Khan plays some carries, but he, was more mostly known for his Sion this year. Like that was his go-to pick. That was what everyone was kind of talking about. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But I expect them to be incredibly good. I mean, they just don't make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, it's still Khan too. So I'm like, anytime I know players, like even if they for a season or for a year, have been doing some style for the meta or for the team or anything like that, I'm not worried about the capabilities of Khan for carry play, because that's originally how he dominated and got so famous. So
it's just 18 Sion games.
Yep.
Next most played, Gnar with 8, and then it's GP with 5, Ornn with 4. Right, so it's like he was in there on some
weak
Sion.
Side, baby.
I think that Gnar is to me is the best top lane right now, because it's just all around. But Sion is so close because of what he brings to your team, and there's so much about team fighting right now being so important. We've seen teams attempt, like you're talking about, really early game focus, or some teams a couple of attempts at split pushing. And Twisted Fate is certainly good with the Everfrost, but a little bit is going to be more in line since we're moving up the patch after the Everfrost nerfs. But yeah, so fighting definitely strong, and Sion's one of the beefiest boys around.
All right, well, LPL, all playoffs also going on. We don't have their representative yet, but FPX, EDG, RNG,
Who you got your money on?
Teams.
Because I already know mine. I'll invest right now.
Probably EDG, I would say.
I'm going FPX. I want this FPX back, baby. They are on fire. Okay. No, and it's because too they were also underestimated. I always more quote unquote like underdogs and overperforming and stuff like that. But holy moly, FPX have just been on fire here. With the upsets they've already been able to pull off in playoffs, and I'm so happy for Tian. Like, he has been in such a slump, and to see him performing well again just makes me want to root for them.
I was gonna say, are you cheering for them, or are you betting on them?
Yeah, I'm cheering, and I'm putting my money where my heart is.
Okay, I mean, I'm with you. I love, obviously Doinby and stuff, but with Tian coming back and being way better in playoffs after having struggles throughout the past year, whatever, however long he's been struggling, I'm just excited to see them good again. Plus, there's so many. At their peak, amazing players with Nuguri, Crisp as well, and obviously Doinby, who is just such a joke. He's so funny. He's so not jokes as in jokester. I meant to say jokester. I don't know why I cut off the stir part, but the shit where he was tweeting perks. Now that we know Perks is going as well for C9, when he was blasting music and dancing, at Worlds 2 years ago, I love that shit. So like I can't wait to have him go back and hopefully we get some banter between him and Perks and stuff.
I've already got my social clip now. I'm clipping Mark saying doing B is a joke and tweeting that out when they win and they're coming to MSI.
Hey man, he looks clean as hell on his Akali.
LPL fans just fucking roasting Mark.
Oh, yep. Don't want to piss off.
His Akali was good. He's not just a roaming bad mechanic player. He just has to play tanks because he's not skillful.
That analyst with the smirk on his face, he just pisses me off every time.
Oh god, that's another great copy pasta with Perks. I feel there's so many good copy pastas with Perks.
Yeah. For sure. LPL playoffs going to be really exciting. I have some catching up to do on those. I've been focusing mostly on catching up through LCK and LEC. So I'm excited to get through all the LPL games. Now that our finals are done, we got a lot of prep to do for this MSI because like previously, we wouldn't always be involved in play-in. Like sometimes you'd be involved in play-ins and then you have to prep all of the regions that are going to be there. But if you just started in the group stage, then you prep all the major regions and you would prep the teams that made it up, right? You would go back and watch other VODs after they qualified and that sort of thing. But everyone is going to have to prep every region because every region is in the main stage. So lots and lots of VODs in my future in these coming weeks.
Also in Worlds, even though Worlds is more representatives from each region, you get some overlap on some of them, right? Because they play each other a decent amount. And so you're like, all right, I'm going to start with all the games that have, matchups between the two Worlds representatives, or two of the three. And you definitely get some crossover. But yep, that's why I'm trying to get ahead of it early. Watch as much of them in real time so you can kind of also you get a feel for the hype, kind of talking about with the roller coaster with trying to will SKT get to face off versus Damwon? Nope. They're just gonna
get
knocked out, and Damwon's gonna stampede their way to the top. Let's move on to some LCS though. Good touch there on the international scene. Honda MVP section coming up at you quick. But guess what? We've already revealed the Honda MVP. So let's go with what was your favorite Honda MVP moment of the finals weekend, the entire weekend you have to draw from here.
All right. If Mark's not instantly going, I'm instantly going.
You go instantly go.
Game 5, the level 1, boom.
I knew it.
Was so good. Damn, it was good. The whole thing was just so smart. The lane swap on the Cho'Gath. I mean, the Cho'Gath was a great pick in the Sion. That is a horrible matchup for Sion early, at least in my experience. That is a really tough one. So you lane swap the Sion away. He starts Ruby Crystal, takes both camps with the Execute. So you've triple buffed your opponent, and they have no idea that they're getting lane swapped on. So not only do you get 3 full quadrants and absolutely destroy our Mayo, but the bot lane shows up behind you. You get first blood on your Tristana, and Sion is down to the bot side where you can't even really dive Sion because he didn't even have to use his TP to get down there. He actually walked to lane. So even if you dove him, he's going to clean up all the farm with his zombie form. So CoreJJ had to immediately bail out and try to go topside to defend Alfari, who was going to be totally screwed in the 1v2. And it just set the entire pace of that game 5. I thought it was so damn smart. And then obviously, from there, Perks was just incredible in game 5. But yeah, that was something that'll stick with me forever.
It's so much credit to the coaching staff to also have the confidence as a team to hide it and wait for game 5 and not use it in game number 4. And Blabber talking about, we felt confident in game number 4. No problem. I got Hecarim. We'll get there. We'll pull up. We'll save it to the last possible moment, the pinnacle. It's actually like Cloud9 were script writers, movie writers here. They're really taking you through the entire arc of the story. They go down 2 games. It's game point into Perk's comfort zone. They don't expend the biggest twist at the end of the movie too early, right? If you do it in game 4, it's not nearly as perfect of a series as they crafted this one to be. And it's even better than just doing a lane swap with Sion because yes, everyone, if you think about it and are coming into it, you're like, oh my God, Sion, that is the single best, top lane champion to do a lane swap with because you can do the suicide jungle strategy to cut off the other quadrant. But also, Trist is one of the best, if not the best, AD carries to do a lane swap with, because you can get rocket jump early to go for the kills on the top laner, and because you do have explosive shot to push the wave insanely fast, so you can actually get the swap back and you don't suffer from the 5-minute defensive timer on the mid and top turrets, and actually lose out on turret plate discrepancy, which is the mechanic in the game that's supposed to deter you from doing lane swaps. So it's just like, it's every little piece is in a perfect spot. And the fact that you're saving it till this intense best of 5, your opponents are not looking for it. So you're setting up the most important game with so many little advantages in your favor, trying to throw your opponents into chaos where they're not expecting any of these things. And yet you are, so you get to feel in your comfort zone, controlling so many little things. It's just, that is what you want out of a finals, man. I was almost like crying. I was like, it's so beautiful, guys.
I think it was obviously dope to see, and it had been around a little bit. Like, I think a lot of people recognize it as soon as they saw the play happening. It's like, oh, I've seen this in scrims, and like, this is a thing that you just haven't seen in a long time. And I think always bringing back these old strats that have so much value still, and being able to execute them, like you're saying, on stage, game 5, when the moment is at the highest pressure, because a lot of people have strats like this. A lot of people do have this like back pocket, maybe we'll bust it out, and then a lot of times you just never do. And so like, I think that's one of the reasons I was so excited to see it, was because like so many people tweeted about it, which means that it's less about like the genius coming up with it, but more about like the guts to go for it in that moment. And that's always really cool to me when someone is willing to do the off-meta thing in a high-pressure situation. PerkZ teams have often done this, which is why like I wonder if he had some influence in it too, whether it's like the G2 Pikes top and like all this different stuff that they're doing, funneling, all this stuff. And so like, I was super excited. The coaching staff, they gave a lot of credit to them for coming up with it and like, helping refine it, which was great to see, and, believing that they can do it. And yeah, it was just so fun to watch. I can't wait to see hopefully more of this kind of stuff in League of Legends, where you have this one crazy idea that's going to try and scrap you out a win. Because in that series, Blue side was generally it was 3 wins in a row on Blue after TL upset on Red side once. And the start of that draft, I was like, oh my god, they gave Hecarim, Ori, Kai'Sa, I think was the first 3 picks or something like that, or maybe it was Rel.
It was Rel, I think. Rel
yeah,
Kai'Sa.
that first rotation, the first phase out of Blue side, I was like, oh my god. But I think C9 obviously had something up their sleeve, which was why it's so cool. You can kind of like trap people into thinking this way. And yeah, the Triss pick as well is one of the best things to leave on alone, because once you get into these like lane swap situations, often supports start moving around, like you had with Core JJ. And Triss, she's a solo lane champion for a reason. She's absolutely super safe, scales well, and all this stuff. And so you can just put her on there sometimes and start roaming around with Vulcan as well. So it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that game was magic. That game was one of my favorite LCS games ever, period, right? Like, it was just, I just think it was so cool. And there's always that guy on Twitter who's going to be like, I've done this before in my game. It's like, it's not the same, bro. I have a gold Scion friend who executes and steals the jungle camps almost every game he plays. Guess what? It's not the same as doing it in a game 5 with MSI on the line, with the championship on the line, to be able to set up the situation. And also, like, they didn't do any level 1 invades or cheese throughout the whole series, right? So you have also conditioned TL to not even think about it or worry about it.
Yeah, and it's all these extra things, because it's not just, oh, we picked Scion and he suicided jungle start with lane swap too. It's so many other little things. Core JJ is such a big problem that if you're able to get the lane swap, and Tristana's explosive shot, I can't emphasize this enough, is so integral in pushing these waves quickly, because whoever gets the first shove and these 10-second leads even on recalling and getting your swap back down to the other side means so much in lane swap scenarios. Like, the reason you come into it with so much of an advantage and so much practice on the side of Cloud9 in these situations, and they talked about it going through it so many times, and this being the perfect best scenario with all of the dominoes running into place. You practice all of these kind of little one-offs from this. Okay, what happens if this goes wrong, and you have a deviation here, or what happens if there's a couple seconds difference here, and for it to come out with this level of execution, you see Core JJ's relevance as a support, who's not even the the main part of the lane swap, is reduced to almost nothing in the first 8 minutes of this game. He's walking up to the other side, walking back down. They're trying to put out fires. Yeah, it puts you under so much pressure. Because I remember playing during the lane swap meta with the Immortals team when they Reignover was not there and they were playing. We were literally queued up as rank 5s and they were just missing one, and I had to play jungle with them. And the enemy team was an LCS team in rank queue, and they lane swapped, and I had no idea what to do, even with everyone yelling at me. Like, the pressure, if you're not expecting it, is just so insane to keep up with these tight timings. Obviously, these guys have all done it previously in the past and stuff, but you could still see that where Cloud9 were so much more ahead of every single play. Really good pick, Azael, by the way. Azael wins the pick. Yes.
This is when we were talking about this at the top of the show, when we were planning the show, I was like, we're all going to pick the same thing, I'm pretty sure. And it was this, because it had such a knock-on effect on the entire game. Like when they swap back, the Cho isn't 5 and the Sion hits 6 when Sion's getting pushed in, because it just has the XP advantage.
Because of the jungle start. Like, it's
and so many laners, like you look at your XP bar, you look at their XP bar, and you assume it's kind of the same, and so you kind of know when they're going to hit 6 based off when you hit it or whatnot, and and it's just like you get all this stuff gets thrown out the window, and it's beautiful to see.
And since you're mentioning that play as well right now, Mark, the one where Fudge is top and he gets the level 6 on Sion, credit to Fudge for holding that minion wave there, because looking through the replay, Perk's roam up to top side. He's on vision. He is on vision of Team Liquid the entire way up the river. But Alfari's like, my wave is stuck in front of his turret. He wants to get these last couple ones killed so he can push it in. Fudge is holding it here with this axe above his head. And even with 3 control wards in river and seeing Perk's head up, it's disaster for them. It's just like so many little things were just really well played. Wave management and lane swaps is actually really fun to pay attention to. All right, Mark, what was your pick? Next pick.
So I was torn between 2. One is First Blood happening in top lane every single game to TL. But I think I'm actually going to go with the hype video for this weekend. I loved it on basically every level that you can love a hype video. I think it's one of the best we've ever put out. I had no hand in it.
Emotionally, physically,
the astral level.
Every way you can love, Mark loved.
All right. Shots were so mind-blowing. The one where they circle the eagle. They circle the eagle, and then they swoop down into the thing. That is like, how did you get that shot? That is like incredible. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime shot to circle a bird, follow it, fly away. To do like this nauseating like IMAX. Like, I can just imagine seeing that like swoop down into the theater. That was sick. The cobwebs on like the thing to like kind of sell the idea that like it's been so long since we've done this. The storylines are great. Obviously the C9 players talking about how they felt a little robbed and how they really want to do this. And then I got to shout out the song choice. Oh, I love Silver Sun Pickups. I love Lazy Eye. That song's dope. I still listen to the album all the time. And, I mean, this is going to be a bit of an old curmudgeon-y take, but, like, I feel like a lot of the times there's just, like, these rap songs that just kind of get thrown in there, regardless of how well they fit with the story that you're trying to tell.
There's been some good rap songs.
There's been some good ones. This is not a shot. I listen to rap. I'm not saying I don't listen to rap, but I think a lot of the times it's just, like, the default hype thing. And I like the range, and there's a great quote that it gets used around a lot with creatives and stuff, and it's like, you can't mean something to everyone, but you can mean everything to someone, which is like, it's better, I think, to fulfill and like do a broader spectrum of takes of different things to really hit the niche for someone like me who's like, oh my god, I love alt indie rock kind of stuff, and like the song choices with the lyrics and what they're kind of talking about, like that hit so much better to me than a lot of the times where it feels like you could actually swap this song out with like 4 or 5 different ones and get a pretty similar piece. Like, I like when they go in the different avenues a lot harder. And some people aren't going to love it as much, but the people who love it are going to be like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. It was amazing. I just had 2 quick things. One, I saw some people talking about the shot of the hawk. Apparently, this was like a wild hawk. This was not like a trained hawk or anything like that. The camera op just straight up randomly saw this hawk and was like, this would be a dope ass shot. I'm gonna do it. and just like went for it and got this like, as you say, like this like once in a lifetime shot that looks like it's like staged with like a trained animal, you know?
Yeah.
And apparently it was just there, and this just happened, and it turned out that well, which is really fucking cool. And then the only other thing I want to say is I think that our features team, something I really respect is the fact that they haven't shied away from the fact that it's like players are talking about like, hey, it's just not the same playing at home. Wasn't that exciting winning last year at home? You know, I miss playing on stage, because I could see people looking at that and being like,
this.
That's kind of negative. You know, you're kind of like poo-pooing the like show we put on last year, but it's real. Like we're all feeling it. Like everyone who's locked in quarantine feels it. And so I respect that, you know, they didn't shy away from it. And I think it makes it more relatable, and it makes it, you know, more, I don't know, just more exciting, the fact that we actually then got to see them on stage.
Yeah, it's real, because everyone is feeling that, just like, F this, get me out, you know. Everybody wants this moment, and it's close. Hopefully we'll be fully reconstructed pretty soon here in summer with vaccines and fans and everything.
I think almost all the casters are vaccinated now, or at least getting there.
Yeah, most people have one shot at least.
For Thursday, the 15th, right away.
Yeah, I got J&J, so one shot and I'm done. I think a lot of people got their first shot, so it's feeling good. It's feeling promising. You know, it's moving forward. What do you have another moment, Kobe?
I do. And my moment is literally just the moment I saw CaptainFlowers with his hair and his real getup. Holy! I just lost it. Oh my God. It was so good. It was like a freaking lion's mane.
Yes.
Just completely blown out here. And it really, to your point about, you know, the features team just completely embracing this hell year that we've been through last year. And being like, yeah, that was rough. That was shit to get through. Everybody's so happy to be on the brink of breaking out of it. CaptainFlowers just visually embodied that for me with like not taking a haircut the entire time. Like he looks like he's been through some stuff. Okay, CaptainFlowers. And he was so happy too. And you know, he's all suited up and he's just like, man, it just made me feel like we are so close to getting out of here. Yeah, I mean, and it was just paired with such a good visual as well. I just so happy. I was so happy.
I got probably like 1,000 tweets about like our hair differences and stuff, you know, like it's like
sure. It's actually funny because you
opposite ends of the hair spectrum, you know, like 0 to 100, you know, like
it's funny because you tweeted out later the thing about him chopping off half his hair and giving it to you.
Yeah.
When I first saw the picture, I was thinking of like saying that, and I was like, well, I don't want to be like insensitive. Like, say you could say it if you're the bald guy. Like, I don't want to be like making fun of the bald, even though I know you wouldn't care.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to say anything. And then Azael's making the joke. You know, like, yes, it's just so perfect.
Yeah. See, it's definitely good to be on the safe side of that.
Yeah.
Some people would take it the wrong, you know, they'll take it badly. For me, I'm comfortable with it. I actually like the way I look now, so I don't really care. When I first was going bald, for sure, I was really insecure about it, and I think that's normal for most people, right? But like once I actually just like accepted my hair was going to be gone and just started buzzing it, and I'm like, you know what? I like it. And then I felt way better about it since then. So I'm good.
That's awesome that you own it. I'm that way with my quarantine weight, you know? At first I was a little insecure. I was like, oh, I'm kind of boxy. And then I was like, you know what? Get back here,
just more mark to love, you know? Speaking of quarantine weight, I've gained like 10 pounds during quarantine, and it hit home because we have some very fitted suits. And and when I was trying to button that suit up, that button was not looking happy. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna go with the unbuttoned, a little bit more casual look. So I'm like, damn, I gotta. The top one was okay. But like the tailored suits, you know, because it's meant to like be like very form fitting, right? So you gain a little bit of weight, it'll let you know. So I was like, damn, I gotta start working out before we're back in the studio for real. Otherwise, Kim's not going to be happy. She's going to need to get me new suits.
It felt really good actually to suit up once again too. Anyways, let's move on. We could touch on 11.7. I don't think we touched on it previously. As far as meta for solo queue and stuff, because they haven't for sure locked in which patch MSI is going to be on yet. So it could be 11.7. It could be 11.8. We haven't gotten official word, so I don't want to completely commit to it, but it's at least been fun for me to play because there were 2 more little dink nerfs onto Hecarim and Udyr, so you don't feel as bad if enemy jungler gets to lock it in. I'd still say that Hecarim should be permabanned if you're not first pick for solo queue for sure. It's like I said, the nerf was extremely small, and I still feel like he is the premier jungle champion, especially for solo queue. But as long as that one's banned out, I don't feel as bad if Udyr gets picked up. I can play, plenty of other stuff, and that's been the main difference to me as on 11.7. There's some little changes with a couple of solo inners. Varus got even stronger, so we're gonna probably see even more Varus at MSI. Regardless of which patch it is on, because it was already popping up so much in LPL, LCK, even LEC, and showing up last weekend too for us.
I believe we did touch on this. I remember I was going through. I was like the Yorick thing. I was like, I remember we talked about Yorick a lot.
Okay, well, let's just delete it out of here then. That's the section.
I will say. I'll throw one more thing in there. I played some ARAMs, man. Saralid's Grudge, or whatever the hell you say it, man. That thing was so annoying. Hate that item. Couldn't move.
You want to play some League of Legends with me this week? We'll get you in there.
No.
I was like, nice try, Azael.
You too, Kobe. I feel like I'm 0 for 100.
You're going to boost my game. I'm going to get crapped on.
The reason why it's funny when you ask Mark is because he doesn't play. But I play. I just don't accept the invite.
I see where you're going. Oh, nice.
It's always funny. Azael, I'll log in once a week maybe, and Azael will sometimes message me if we're on the same time. I'll be like, "Oh, you playing ARAMs? You want me to play?" And I'm always like, "No, you're hidden." Elo for I don't know if it's still true, but for a while Azael was like one of the highest rated. Weren't you? Like you had long queue times to play on ARAM. I don't want to play with that when I'm limping back in.
And for me, I don't accept most of the time because I don't like the thing I like most about League at this point, I've been playing it for freaking over 10 years, is the only thing that keeps me going back is my competitive nature. So I always want to play rank solo or at the very least flex.
No, in there for the normies.
Azael loves ARAMs and plays mostly normal games when I get the invites. Yeah. So, but I've seen you in there with Nick and then the boys playing some flex queue. If you have a spot in there, I'll join. I'll join the flex queues, but if it's a normal one, I'm probably going to either ignore or
all right, well, you can get in there with us for some flex for sure. Last time we played flex, it was kind of tragic night. We had like a 5-man riot squad. It was pretty fun, but like we were playing such high-rated teams. Every team was like Masters and GM solo queue players and actually drafting real comps. And we're just like, all right, let's play Static Shavai, and Scott's locking in. Like Scott's Sicko Scott. He's playing with him. Yeah. He's one of my best friends. He just like wouldn't even say a word. We're all talking about like what our comp's gonna be, and he just like locked Corky top blind, like without a word. And we're just like, Scott. And he goes into a Jace, this like Grandmaster Jace, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna start Cull. I'll let you can imagine how that game went.
I'm glad Scott's ego is still intact because there's no other explanation for that one.
He did not cash out his call that game, if I recall correctly.
Oh my god!
And he started to
sell it off before.
No, he didn't sell it.
End the game.
No, the game ended. So Corky top with Cull start. Blind when you're playing a Jace.
Oh god, dude! If I was in that game, I would have screenshotted the call to show how many CS were left on it, and I would just send that to him every. Well,
the worst part was, I'm pretty sure it was like a 25-minute game. So
you have plenty of time.
In his defense, that's how I look at flex queue also, because I'm like, okay, I'm super competitive, so I'll play ranked solo queue. If we're trying to have fun, and I play with my flex queue with friends, I'm like, haha, yeah, it's flex queue, and I use that as like, X champion just got buffed. I wanna brush up, get the rust off my.
I want to win when I play flex queue. It's not that. I mean, I
always want to win.
Yeah, I don't care if I lose, but I do I have a lot of fun with the idea of like coordinating and like trying to build a comp that makes sense. And, because to me, that's the most exciting and fun part about League of Legends. Yeah, it is the teamwork aspect, right? And like, I'm down to play like whatever is good for the comp, right? Like if I'm later in the draft and we're missing AP, I'm playing AP even if I didn't want to. If I think we need a tank, I'll play a tank, right? Like I just like that aspect, and I like, because I feel like I'm contributing more than when I play solo queue, where it's like, it's not as fun to be like, I'm going to draft a gank this lane here, or I'm going to pick for the comp even if I'm going to get slammed in the 1v1. It doesn't feel as rewarding. So that's what I really like about flex queue. I don't care if I lose when I'm playing with friends, but like I want us to be like, trying to win.
I think the problem is that keeps flex queue back is that a lot of people have this similar view that if you want to show your skill and impress people, the solo queue rank is the one that matters. Flex queue, people don't take it, to mean a whole lot, because they're just like, okay, you can get carried by, you're queuing with X people and not nearly as many people play it. And so we're missing the crossover where you get the ranked fives with like incredible, either rewards or prestige or something along with it. And you have like all these
Clash, right?
Yeah, all these teams or whatever, and that's what Clash is.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and the whole reason for Clash taking that spot and it not being a permanent queue is because Flex queue has a lot less players. Rank 5s even had less than that. Yeah. And so that's why it's just these time windows. If you condense it into the time window of Clash, then you can get.
I still think Flex is super fun. And it does get pretty competitive, I will say, once you hit a certain elo, because you get all the people who are Masters, GM, and High Diamond who aren't going to get
I'm in that queue. I queue a challenger with players, and they all take it jokingly.
Okay, well.
They're all picking random picks unless they're queuing with like someone they want to impress for outside of the game reasons.
So I will say, like, I mean, if you're queuing with Challenger, it's different, right? What I was going to say, you didn't let me finish, is that people who are below Challenger, I've found will often do try hard comps and stuff because they want the Challenger border. And they're going to get it through Flex. And it's like, I'm High Diamond or Masters, but I'm not going to get Challenger. So they'll like, you're playing like TF Nocturne, like, Camille split push comps and like all this stuff. And so, I mean, who knows how hard they're actually trying, but it gets fairly competitive. I think it's fun. And at least at the level we're playing at, which is like, mostly like mid diamond level players or whatever, we need real comps to be able to compete against those high ranked teams when they're building real comps.
Sounded to me like what's going to hit the spot for you, Azael, is a professional team. Hear me out.
Azael announces he's joining a pro team. There's the headline for the episode. Let's go.
All right, we talked about this too long. Let's keep going. LCS recap this weekend. We can do a quick start here. Saturday, TL versus TSM.
Yeah, and I think it's a series I wouldn't want to get too much into the weeds about, like the actual gameplay stuff. But for me, at least, looking big picture is what's the interesting part for me, because TSM I thought was going to lose heading into the weekend. Then the kind of Santorin news broke, and Armeo's subbing in. He looked pretty okay in lock-in when they initially played with him, but it did look like there were some struggles against 100 Thieves when they played and some of the other top teams. So I thought some of those struggles were going to come back again, especially considering that there was not a great showing at the very end of Proving Grounds for Armeo and stuff. So I flipped my prediction. I was like, TSM is going to win this one 3-2. And then to lose the way they did in that series, I got to say, it feels pretty bad to lose against a last-minute substitute player and just be not very coordinated in like the late game situation and stuff for TSM. I think that's a series that really stings and shows how much growth they have to go through to realistically challenge TL and C9 when they're playing well, because it feels like they are at least one step back, maybe two or three.
I think for some positive things that I saw, I really liked the Gragas game from Sword Art when they were looking really proactive. They get this bottom side double kill. And, Spica is on the Krugs. They call him over. They take it in the tri-brush. And then Sword Art immediately uses that presence on bottom lane where you've unlocked your bottom lane now to go roam. And this is something that we see even so many professional teams miss out on, is the person that gets an advantage. I feel like you almost always get the most out of these advantages when you start to roam and you take that advantage to another lane. And Sword Art did that. TSM did that so effectively. He gets the bottom side opening, and then after that double kill, roams mid, immediately dives Jensen, and you start to see, some of this evolve. There was that positive, and then there was the PoE, basically PoE game positive, where his Orianna, and they're able to win that. So, those are the types of things you look for on the side of TSM. Looking forward, but yeah, I mean, it's talking about stinging like that. It was almost an open wound with the last game. That was just so brutal. The way that the series ended was extremely brutal for them. So yeah, I definitely feel for all the players for your season to end on a stomp like that with the last game. It definitely hurts, and hopefully that makes that just it lights your fire for practicing during the off season. Getting ready for summer. Again, we mentioned it so much in the beginning of the year with preseason power rankings and all this stuff about that team having a lot of work to do. 5 different players, 5 different teams, all these different regions, coming together. Speak of being the only one and the youngest one, over from last year on TSM and being built around. So,
yeah. I mean, I think, it was rough for a lot of reasons. I felt like Huni got absolutely top gapped. Part of it was picks. Part of it was play. The Renekton for me just didn't work at all. It just didn't feel like they really had much of an answer or idea of what to do in Dalfari. It's like I feel like Renekton is only good when you're playing it with an aggressive jungle pairing and you're going to play towards it and try to slam it. It didn't look good in the Gnar. When he played the Gnar, he was losing the GP. The other 2 games he tried 2 different builds against the Scion. You just can't hurt Scion. Scion is like immune to damage. It's just it feels like unless you're going to go so hard at this guy and put him in the dirt instantly, Renekton can't really create advantages against him, and then it's tough to really out team fight him unless you get like amazing flanks and stuff. But then they didn't always have like a dive buddy alongside him, so I thought that was rough. I also felt Lost looked really nervous. There was a couple different situations. There was like one bot lane where I want to say he was playing like I want to say it was like Tristana or something into a Kaisa, and he like jumped on tactical, and like forced him back, right? Like he flashed away or whatever, or like ulted away, and it just felt like then he just immediately panicked and like he healed and flashed away when he was at like still 50%. And there was a couple moments like that where I just felt like it looked like he was having a lot of jitters, and he is a young guy. I'm not sure like if he was ever in a finals before, in academy or in OPL or anything, but he looked pretty jittery, and I think that's something that hopefully will come to him more with time.
All right, move on to the more exciting day then, because Team Liquid got to face off versus Cloud9. Yes, surrounding it is this story of we feel bad for Santorin. I mean, migraines are no freaking joke. I have people in my family and friends that have chronic migraines. So all wishes and prayers out to Santorin that he feels better, gets better. But our Mayo in the series, talking about the TSM Team Liquid one, he performed quite well in that one to get them to this Cloud9 matchup. And as a last minute sub, just coming in and having so much pressure on him to perform. There were a couple of moments. I remember like Udyr trying to like 1v2 topside Karma and Hecarim or something like that. And that was definitely a rough one. But for the most part, I think, coming in, big props to him, short notice and tons of pressure.
Yeah, I definitely feel like he wasn't the reason they lost the series, which I think was the concern for a lot of people, was that he was just going to come in and be way out of place and be inting team fights and not making anything happen in the early game. And I think he largely put those doubts, that like they lost because of him out of the question. But it did at least still raise enough of a question for me to be like, well, I think Santorin's much better than this. Not like he was trash, but just like Santorin's the second best jungler in the league. And that play that you're referencing, the first game when he was trying to help Alfari push in the wave and Fuzz just flashed on him and killed him. Like there were a number of these kinds of misplays where I'm like, even if Santorin was going for the same play, I think he would have played it differently and better and like wouldn't have had that outcome. And, like those are the kinds of instances where I'm like, literally every game they started dying top lane in some instance. Sometimes it was Alfari, sometimes it was him. And I just can't believe that this wouldn't have been an issue the exact same way. I think they would have at least won some early games if they had Santorin in there.
Just to speak on this real quickly, too, as a psychological phenomenon, it's actually so interesting from this perspective because everybody will have this feeling because okay, Santorin is a starter. Santorin, voted second right behind Blabber himself. So Santorin is a better jungler. So you're going to assume with every mistake that you see, no matter what mistake or how big or how small it is, that you see on screen for Azael, and this is part of the fact that we're talking about. There's so much pressure, and it's such a difficult situation to be in. Anytime you see a mistake on screen, everybody is, even if it's subconsciously, going to wonder, would Santorin have played that better? That wouldn't have happened. That sort of thing is just kind of unavoidable. So that's what I just want to like restate for him is like there's almost no winning in a situation like that. Unless you come in, you play perfectly, and you actually win, then people are like, oh my God, I can't believe they did it with sub, amazing performance like that. Otherwise, if you lose, every single thing is going to have a microscope on it. So
especially, I mean, it's tough for that also to not get in your teammates' heads as well, right? And yeah, I mean, I think he was really good. I would say as far as like for him to win, I feel like he did win. Because as far as like, this is by far the most positive I've ever seen anyone talk about him for his whole career. And it's not close, right? People were roasting this guy when he was on TSM, like every single week. Like, how shit is Grig? He doesn't do anything. People are pretty happy with him. He's changed his name towards Armeo, so Armeo. But I think he played well in the TSM series. I think
great overall, branding along with that, by the way.
A lot of good reasons for that one.
Yeah. I think he really did play pretty well here. He wasn't. It was the one thing that you guys are pointing out, or Mark pointed out, or whatever. Yeah, I would say it was top lane, right? Just because like even in the cast going into like game 4, I was like, all right, First Blood has been in the top lane 3 games in a row, and Flowers like, is it going to happen in game 4? I'm like, I don't really think so. I feel like you gotta have identified this pattern. Like you just gotta have communication between the top laner and the jungler at that point because Alfari understands when he's in danger, and almost every one of these kills came off of like the wave setups where he's trying to reset the wave and then Blabber kills him. And so if Alfari knows he needs to reset the wave, Armeo just needed to be up there and actually fix his pathing to be up there, and even if it meant giving up a camp, because this was just such a clear plan of attack for Cloud9, and it happened every single game.
I was laughing in game 5 too, by the way, that it happened, and you're like, okay, it's not going to happen this time. We're looking for that even like 2-minute 30-second gank, okay? Even if he goes 3 camps immediately up here, blue Gromp,
2
red,
camp. I'm ready for red to gank.
Is he going to do red gank me? I'm freaking ready for this. I'm not going down. And there's like, all right, but what about the 2v1?
But what about the level 1? What about the level 1?
And you're like, no!
Santorin would have fixed that problem. No. I memean, that's why I think a lot of fans can still feel good that C9 earned this win, especially given that they beat them in the top in the winners bracket already. Just unfortunate. I think everyone would want to see people play at their best, but I'm still stoked for C9. They looked so good. Perks stepped up, played so many different play styles over the course of the series, shifting from like the Seraphine supportive to the more scaling hard carry control mages, and then at the end busting out the Silas. Like, this is why I love watching him play.
So I got some really cool stats sent to me, and because it's on Twitter, I'm not fully sure that I can trust it, but they sound cool, so I'm going to read them, and we can go from there. But apparently, Perks is now 24-5 in game 4s in best of 5s, and 10-3 in Game 5's career all time since his promotion series versus SK. And like that just sounds insane. I'm also like, has he played that many series? Like, I mean, I guess he's been around for a really long time.
He's been in every single playoffs.
Yeah. So, but and then I guess if you include like all international stuff and whatever, if those stats are accurate, that's pretty insane. Especially even just the 10-3 in Game 5s, but 24-5 in Game 4s. That's a lot of series. That's like never losing in that series. So that's pretty astounding if it is in fact accurate.
Yeah, I mean that's why they have so many of the trophies over there, the LEC trophies in his trophy case. Definitely deserving. Honestly, too, after this series, and even before this series, I was really happy with both teams. I feel like I would have been happy regardless of which team represented us at MSI. For a lot of the reasons we stated, yeah, I am happy that it's Cloud9, but I am so excited for Worlds and for Summer and stuff, for Team Liquid too. I know, we're talking about how much TSM is hurting right now after losing, how much, Team Liquid are so sad and hurting after losing too. I'm definitely looking forward to Summer and continuing to see the growth, because all of these teams, did make changes. And Cloud9, I think it is fitting that they, since lock-in, were the team that has had the most upward trajectory and has been constantly improving. And they showed a lot of different looks in strategy, as well as some execution. And we also got to see the Perks playoff buff, so like we know that's true. Even I'm not a superstitious one, and I'll like take trends like that, but that performance as well from specifically Perks, I'm definitely hyped for our international hopes this year, which is yet again, it's like, all right, North America, I'm getting my hopes up again, baby. How many years in a row? They always find a way to make me believe. Those LCS teams, I'm back on board.
Superstitious. You call that superstitious? Being clutch? I don't know.
I don't call clutch being superstitious, but if you say some stuff about playoff buff is different than clutch to me, okay?
Okay, I take them as the same.
Yeah, those types of things are, feel different.
Yeah.
Because playoff buff is like you were literally playing the whole game better in playoffs. and we've seen, like the impact playoff buff, what was definitely a thing, for many years. But if it's a thing of like, oh yeah, this player doesn't play as well as regular season because all these whack reasons, like, oh yeah, they only rise to the occasion when there's real pressure or stuff like that. No, clutch is definitely real. Under pressure performances definitely have effect on people, but to play literally better than your regular season in playoffs as a buff, I'm like, all right, that's bordering on the like. Yeah, you believe in ghosts and stuff like that as well. Whoops! I just offended a bunch of ghost believers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the clutch thing is definitely, I feel true. I think there's definitely, you can just kind of see it in how much he, like, people say it, and we said it a little bit on the desk, but also in Jerusalem, like, oh, I want the ball, coach. Give me the rock. Let me take the last shot, kind of thing. Like, regardless of any mental edge or something, it's at least like an attitude thing to be like, I want to be the one with the pressure on me in Game 5 to do that, the same way someone wants the ball to take the last shot, this kind of stuff. And I think he displayed that a little bit when he was like, give me the Zoe pick, which was something that was not super prioritized, it felt like, for a large portion of the season even, let alone this series and stuff. But being able to find that $11 million sleepy trouble bubble onto
that was clutch.
Tactical.
See, that was clutch.
Yeah. And that's what I like about, like, just giving yourself the opportunity to make the plays to win the series, like the RNG Game 5 when he's on the LeBlanc, and like these kinds of moments that he's had over his career. Just like, doesn't back away from the pressure, and even, we'll try even harder, roaming all over the map on Silas in Game 5, down 20 CS, but had found 2 kills for it. Like that kind of stuff, you just love to see.
And just real quickly, expanding on this, thing of, playoffs versus regular season, there is also definitely a difference between the level of importance of games and pressure of games and, attention and detail that you actually put into it. Yeah, you are going to be a little bit more lax in a regular season game that doesn't mean anything. So there are those levels of differences.
So here's my take on playoff buff, and this is how I always felt in my WoW career. People always told me, "Holy shit, you're so insane on LAN," right? Like people were like, "Wow, he's such a good LAN player," and to me, it wasn't like a playoff buff or a tournament buff. It's a reverse. Yeah, it's that there's a playoff nerf for other players, because I felt like the reason I was successful at tournaments was because I played the same, or at least pretty close to as well as I did without pressure. Maybe I played slightly worse because I still felt the pressure at times, for sure. I think everyone does. It's just like the degrees, right? And I felt like I played about the same. And I felt like a lot of times I could obviously see my opponents playing much worse. Like there would be people that sometimes would slam me in practice sometimes. Like going into the tournament, I'd be like, ah, shit. Like, what are we going to do against these guys, right? We couldn't figure anything out. And then I'd play them, and it's just fucking free. Like they're just making so many mistakes that they wouldn't in practice. And it was like, and people like, damn, you played out of your mind. Like I watched you lose on stream to them. Like when you're playing on ladder all the time, you fucking stomped them in the tournament. Like that wasn't crazy. That was nuts. How did you play so much better?
And I was just like, a lot.
I was going to say, Azael's got a pouty mouth today.
Oh, sorry. My bad. And it was just like, well, I thought I played about the same, right? I thought I played pretty well, about what I play normally. And so to me, that's what it is. It's like impact and perks, and these guys who talk about playoff buff, they're just not as affected by the nerfs. They're probably playing about as well as they normally play, which is really, really, really good. And they're just amazing players. And when other players are not as nervous, it's going to be more competitive. So the difference is smaller. But we get perks on a stage. If he's not feeling the nerves at all, if he's not sweating at all, and he's playing at his normal level, and his opponent is freaked out by the nature of the situation, whether it's by the crowd or by the stage or in the back of your head, knowing this is to make MSI, I can't mess this up. If that gets on you, then the gap becomes apparent, right? And that's the playoff buff, which I would call playoff nerf. I mean, I've never said that on broadcast because it just sounds
negative.
It just sounds negative, right? It's like, well, actually, I just think everyone else is playing worse. But the thing is,
so many people are like, yeah, no, this player, and specifically, I know majority of fans and stuff with this specific player, they're just way better. Playing way better and above their level during playoffs and stuff. And the reasoning given is like, okay, when the pressure is on and they're caring so much more about it and stuff, and you use that pressure and that energy, as fuel, and you actually do play better. And I'm like, that can definitely, it can happen. But for it to be like, that's something that I rely on. Like if somebody has a terrible regular season and you're like, don't worry about it, bro, you just got the playoff buff. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to believe in that until I see that. Right. If it happens, I'm like, okay, it's really good job rising to the occasion, but there's no way I'm feeling comfortable because somebody's just like slacking off and having a really bad regular season or something like that. And especially with the style of play that Perks goes for, it makes a lot of sense because he does like to prey on mistakes and openings from opponents. And we saw that in game number 5 where you put them out of a comfort zone. You shake up the variables. So now they're in a lane swap and there are all these openings and he's constantly pushing and getting out of his lane to go gank people, at different timings for them while they're trying to deal with other factors and they're crumbling under that pressure. And he's thriving in it because he's more on the offensive and looking to attack.
Yeah, I think it's a super interesting conversation because I totally agree actually with what Azael saying about like how it's more often that the general competition starts feeling the pressure more than like this guy rises because of the pressure, starts playing better. It's not like you suddenly become more skillful. But I also think, I think it's mostly that, but there is still some truth, I think, to some players in all sports who just seem to have like that it factor. You're like Michael Jordan, just I don't know something about him. Larry Bird with the ball in his hands, clutch. Last shot. Tom Brady with the ball. Ooh, there's that factor. And I think that's why you often talk about it in the more positive way because realistically, it's the same throw, it's the same champions, it's the same execution that you've probably done hundreds of thousands of times in scrims. It's just that the moment doesn't phase you at all. which is actually pretty hard to do. And to give another shout out to someone, Fudge, that's one of the things I loved about his game 1 flash in to kill Armeo in the 1v2. Blabber wasn't even there yet. Blabber was coming, but he didn't wait for the play. He saw a situation that he'd probably seen in scrims or solo queue and countless times where it's like, hey, this guy thinks he can push the wave in against me, but he's half health as a jungler, and I can just combo him and kill him. Yeah. And he didn't back away from the situation because of the pressure in the stage. And that actually speaks a lot to, I think, Fudge's mentality and his potential growth as a player, which has been already incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, I'm not trying to say it as like a negative thing, like Perks isn't great. It's cool to see players that aren't affected by it, and like the Jordans and the Bradys and like all these people that are insane are so unfazed, right? But like no one would be impressed if Jordan, hit a free over someone in practice, right? It's the pressure of the moment that is gonna make almost everyone crumble, but doesn't make this guy crumble, and that is what's cool about it. And it's a reverse way of looking at it, but I think it's equally as impressive and cool.
Yeah,
that's why I'm attacking the details and the phrasing of these, because so many people put them.
It's a translation, not a rotation.
Yeah, exactly. People put these up to superstitions. That's definitely one of the best moments in a long time, by the way. That people put them up to like superstitious levels. I know there's so many sports fans that are superstitious, but literally the reason I named myself Kobe after Kobe Bryant so many years ago is the Mamba mentality, hard work paying off for this stuff. It's not superstition that you're going to be that great. It's not luck. It's not some, buff that you get or whatever. It's the hard work, performing under pressure. And he's such a good example of it. Man, we have had a lot of branch off topics, but that's
good, though.
Where you go when it's the end of the split, end of a season.
These have been fun chats, man. I'm enjoying the episode today. I would say, to get back on the series a little bit, I just thought it was like a really good competitive series. I was very happy with that. And to speak about just like my thoughts on Cloud9 coming out of it, even in the series where like or the games where I was like, okay, I don't really love your draft, Game 1, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to snowball super hard early. They fell out of it. I was really impressed with how hard they were to beat. Even in the games where it's like, oh, this feels decided. Game 1 felt decided at a certain point where it's like, yeah, TL outscaled you, you're checkmated. The Nocturne game felt decided at a certain point where it's like, yep, same thing happened. All right, too late, you lose. And then they pushed TL to like 45 minutes, 48 minutes, whatever, and found ways to keep it competitive and to make you go, what if, right? And I think that never say die is really important to try to pull wins out of nowhere when you're going into international and there's going to be best of ones and every single win counts, because how many times has NA missed making it out of groups or whatever by one game? It's like almost every time.
You know why I'm so hyped too, for NA again, for international appearances? This factor that you're describing here is exactly why so many people were so up in arms at, G2 losing Perks. Because we saw G2 now not qualifying, not, winning, despite on paper, this roster currently for G2 to be just as powerful. They got Reckless in there, for the AD carry slot. They still have the same regular squad. They've got Caps there, best, EU player by far. And you start to see the cracks. And Yanko's talking about on stream, they're missing some of the leadership, and they're missing some of these factors that you're talking about. These people always refer to intangibles in sports, right? And these are all these things that you refer to. It's like that's what Perks has packaged up, right? And that's part of what Cloud9 bought. And it almost feels kind of fitting that you see, okay, Perks no longer on G2, boom, immediate results difference between, Cloud9 actually making it through in these best of fives in these situations, and you have these clutch performances and all these types of things, and you're like, that is what we're trying to put into words here. When people talk about intangibles and they come up with these kind of weak ways to describe stuff that is you don't actually see so concretely or displayed in stats and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good talk, boys. We're at like 80 minutes already. We haven't talked about.
I thought this was gonna be a fast episode. I'm like, there's only 2 series to cover, and then I don't know.
Was that a meme with you too? Because that was a meme when Jat was on the show. Literally every time we come in, we'll be like, 30 minutes tops, guys. This is gonna be a quickie.
We literally have never had a quick episode.
Never once. And so just every week you come in and be like, how long do you think? 20, 25? Yeah, it's a light week. We'll be in and out.
do a quick dip.
Well, we usually could do like predictions at the very end of it, but the only thing we could predict would be like
we'll leave that to our
Cloud9 versus Dom1. What's our Cloud9 versus Dom1 group stage going to look like? Because we at least know those representatives.
Cloud9 will get out of groups. Prediction. Lock it in.
Get out second, probably.
All right, let's move on to some anchor questions then. First one we got is from Elliot Hartwig. It is on Lissandra. Why is Lissandra not back in meta?
Hello, guys. My name is Elliot, and I've been listening to the podcast for a while. Love catching up on the LCS pro scene. So I want to say it was 11.7, Lissandra got some buffs to her Q. I'm curious, as a Lissandra main, what puts her into the meta, and why hasn't she been meta for several years? I want to say 2018 Worlds was the last time she seemed to be meta in the pro scene. So what changes that, since she has such a good mid-jungle duo pressure? Thanks.
So from the little that I have played Lissandra, when I've kind of dabbled, I just feel like her mana cost, I think it was her mana cost got touched a while ago. And back when she used to be popular was actually with the old passive, I believe, where it was like every X spells were free or something like that, but it was mana based. I can't remember exactly what it was because it's been on this like the ice zombies one for so long. Like when you kill them, you get the little explosions. But to me, she just struggles with mana problems so badly. And a lot of the builds that you would want to go towards, like with Protobalt and stuff, people used to supplement with like multiple Doran's rings and Dark Seals and stuff. Well, Dark Seal has no mana on it. Doran's ring stacking doesn't really do anything for your mana anymore. Like, I guess you could rush tier and do that sort of stuff, but my experience playing the champion has just been, you just run out of mana constantly.
As for, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was going to throw. I think matchups aren't good for her. She's always kind of struggled, except in really particular metas, into a lot of the control mages. Yeah. She actually usually loses to Orianna, Victor's, Azir's. Her range is not good, and she needs to have kill threat realistically against a lot of those with jungler assistance and stuff to be able to survive. And she does have a lot of setup and stuff, but her meta is usually into LeBlancs or melee assassins and these other things where she's able to lock them down and kind of freeze them out of the game. I just don't think that I don't know what I would want to pick her into right now, realistically, that people are generally playing. And so that's why I don't think you really see her.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I was going to say. At the challenger level, the lane phase determines so much of it.
I watched the what was it, distorted reality Malphite or whatever.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Oh yeah, reality denial.
Reality denial. That was actually really funny. I didn't remember it all. Still have definitely never seen it before. But I was cracking up for sure. He's doing nothing. He's doing no damage. He doesn't do anything at all. He just killed you, dude, like 6 times. He's just killed you again. You're dead. So what's your point? Shut up.
It made me think it was staged. Like, is that guy really? Did he
play some low elo games? Hop on Discord with some low elo players and just listen to the excuses that come out. Like, I thought that one of the genius parts of that video is I think it's relatable for a lot of people, even myself. Like when I was playing with my friends, he's like, no, I'm not getting crapped on. This guy got lucky. I just messed up.
But he's like saying this guy is not killing him as he's dying, and he's like, he didn't kill me. He literally said he gets killed and literally says this guy did not kill me. Like, there's no way that's not fake. Okay,
he's fuming. This guy was mad.
You shut up. Well, I don't remember what the friend's name was, but he'd be like, "Shut up, Kyle," or whatever.
Yeah. It was really funny, and I was like, yeah, I totally get it. But like, this is an extreme that highlights the humor of being extreme in these cases, and everyone can relate to people, having a level of cognitive dissonance.
I mean, I've had people flame me in solo queue for some of the dumbest reasons. I remember I remember this guy popping off. I was playing a jungle game. This was years ago, but this one has always stuck in my brain. Where my bot lane got ganked or whatever and died, and this guy's just going berserk on me, right? And I'm like, bro, he literally walked over 2 of my different wards, both my pink and my yellow ward, and I pinged it the whole way. And he's like, hey, moron, or whatever. Like, you can't, like, no one's going to look at that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, just watch the minimap, or I'm pinging. Just pay attention. He's like, you can't do that while you're making plays. Like, maybe you should try it. Like, that's why we're losing. Blah, blah, just like, he's just popping off on me. I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Yeah. So there's some real special folk out there that you'll encounter in solo queue. So that's why I saw this and I'm like, I could see it, because people just get mad and then they get really dumb.
It's just like literally something that happens and you're just saying it's not happening though. Cause like that's a difference of like, there are some shit where you're like, that's really, really dumb take, but like this is actual just something that just happened. That's a fact that you're refuting. And it's not like it's something that's even not on your screen. Your screen is now gray. You're dead. I didn't die. I'm not dead. Okay, follow up though. Anyways, beyond this, it was a good look. I'm glad I went back and actually watched it. Mm-hmm. But the video that people were linking me that said original on it literally only had like 2.8K views. So
I don't think
was that with a lot.
Was it not the original? Okay, because then I was like, okay, Mark, this did happen. This was a thing. But it was not nearly as popular or as influential as you're saying. But it must have been like just another.
They probably meant like original, like it's the original video, not altered at all, but not the original post, because that had like 100,000 millions of views. And like even to this day, if you're scrolling through Reddit comments on the subreddit, you'll see people be like, he doesn't even do anything, or like they'll reference some of the lines. It is a top choice.
One that someone linked me, I think had a lot. I can't remember.
Because like all of your other examples that day, I was on board with, and I'm like, Lee Sin, my body telling me no, that
was weird that we both
everybody knows those. I know all these things. This was the only one where I was like,
Yeah, I saw people shouting for justice for Mark though, because we didn't know it. So I watched.
All right, so we give Mark justice on that one. Applaud. And yet it's still you get hit with the shit stick for the earlier one.
We demand justice for you muting. All right, we got more Twitter questions here. Let's go to the next one, which I'm going to bring up. All right, this one comes from Atheist Fanatic. It says there's been a lot of talk about how draft-dependent series are now. Is this because of a specific meta, because teams are being better about being able to execute on winning drafts, or something else contributing to it? Do you think this trend will continue to the future? I don't know what these guys think. I feel like it's because people, the rise of a lot of co-streamers and stuff, and content creators who are just hyper-focused on draft. I think that's the biggest thing. I think in an incredibly close series, draft can really dictate it. I don't feel like this is really something new. I just think that there's more of a hyper-focus on it from the community. And I've even tweeted about this before, where I actually think people are way too focused on the draft. As cool as the draft is, as much as the draft matters, you got to play the damn game. And most of the time, execution heavily outweighs the advantages or disadvantages in draft. But if you are super closely matched, then sure, it matters a lot. But I mean, even some of the best teams in the world, even teams that are like winning worlds, I see sometimes getting absolutely roasted every game for their drafts by like creators, right? And that to me is where it's like, okay, like they see it a different way. It works for them every game. Like, it's clearly not as bad or as big of a deal as people make it out to be.
I generally agree with the overall premise that it is overblown a lot for draft. I will say that maybe not having to do so much with this specific meta, but anytime you're on the same patch for an abnormally extended amount of time, which we have been for 11.5. Since our playoffs is the only only playoffs lagging behind and still on 11.5, you get more and more set in the specific things that can counter other specific things on this patch and are better in these ways. And it becomes more clear Whereas usually there's this churn and you're moving along and you have shifts in the meta and you're continually making these adjustments. I will say that there are some things that are that might lead to it being a little bit more increased when you do have that extra stability. But yeah, I also do generally think that it is overemphasized. But it's also like a trend with games like World of Warcraft. With World of Warcraft Classic coming out, everything has already been figured out, and so there are more minutia and more specific strategies and stuff that just wouldn't fly. And you're like, that's ridiculous to try that nowadays, right? Like it's already been figured out this way. So whenever you have more time on it or more even just more competitive experience for people playing and drafting League of Legends, then it's going to trend that way, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Azael's point about people like to say someone won the draft and they'll go really hard on why some pick was terrible or something, but like realistically, you're probably talking about a couple percentage points differences.
Some can be very big.
So right. So I was actually going to mention that as well. Is that I do think that there actually were to the point though. I do think that this was more draft dependent of a playoffs than you sometimes see. Like looking back at the first time Cloud9 and TL played, like that Game 2 draft where C9 has this all short range kind of early game comp against TL with like all this insane kite back and scaling and protection and all this stuff. And the game was over at 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it was, when they had that Rift Herald fight, and they couldn't kill anyone. It's like, okay, unless they get like insane flanks and like very hard outplay TL, this game is over. And I did feel like there were more of them. There was the Dig versus 100 Thieves series where every game just like, what are you doing, Dig? I felt like there were more of those kinds of games where I was like, well, unless something really changes up, this is probably going to this team. And more often than not, it did. So I do think this playoffs was a little bit more like that. And one of the reasons I think is there's a little bit more flexibility in the meta than you sometimes see, where it's like, here are the 4 control mages that everyone plays. It's Cassio, Azir, Ryze, and Ori, and that's what it's going to be, some combination of those 4 every game. I felt like when you have more versatility, like to your point, people can counter each other more and get better drafts that actually have bigger advantages. And I think that's partially the case. Was there was more things to go for in this meta than you sometimes see.
Also, when the game is more simple, then it's easier to say X is better than Y. Because if there are very different win cons, like you can say, oh, this team drafted very differently from this other team, but it's extremely viable to win through this other way, and you can see what they're focusing on. But if both teams are trying to do a team fight, and one team comes out with a bunch of winning lanes to set up their team fight, and there's like not a scaling difference there, then you're like, well, looks like they won this draft, because if they're both going for the same thing and it's a lot more simple of a meta and there are other things to judge there, then I think it also leads to that. So I think that both things can be true to a degree.
Yeah, I think it can go both ways. Like take game 1 from this series, TL versus C9. C9 goes super early game with only Seraphine as like basically their only scaling in the game, and they got a 4K gold lead, but then they threw and they lost. And like I think it's very easy to kind of naively break that down and be like, well, TL won the draft, they had better scaling, and obviously they're going to win. But it's like if you get a 4K gold lead with an early game comp, usually you can actually close that out. But Blabber flashed in and killed himself top lane right as Baron's spawning, and then after Vulcan messed up an engage to dive turret, and people will just kind of look at the draft and be like, early game team comp, of course it's going to lose to the late game scaling, and it's like, well, did you see the misplays?
What's funny about that is that Cloud9 versus Team Liquid, the exact same opponent in the previous series, used an extremely similar team composition and got the win. By successfully snowballing. So.
Yeah. And I mean, like you can prefer drafts. I really like thinking about and talking about draft. I just dislike the idea that sometimes people are like, make it out as though the game is already decided instantly with the draft, right? And it's like, to Mark's point, I think it's like each champion advantage, each compositional advantage gives you a couple % which can be enormous in a close series, right? I think it's a big deal. I think it's cool to talk about, but yeah, just it's something that's easy to focus on and easy to talk about. So I think that's part of the reason. All right, we got this next question from Tom Courtney, who wants to know, who's your favorite one-for-all champion with it being the current event game mode? He said his vote goes to Lulu.
I used to play a lot of one for all. I think my favorite ones are the ones where you can do really annoying combos, like Morgana just Q spam once you hit one person, or when you can use someone else's stuff in your spells. So like I don't know if it's still true, but I think like Zyra could use other Zyra plants, or like Jace's could use other Jace gates.
Raven's catching different axes.
Yeah, any of those ones are pretty
Cinder
fun.
balls.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing a Yorick game. That was pretty hilarious, where you just have like 10 million ghouls and the whole map is just covered in your little cages and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Jhin also pretty fun. I played like 3 or 4 games of One for All, to be honest. Yeah, I don't play a tremendous amount about it.
I've played one in my whole life, and we all did Blitzcrank. That was kind of fun, so I'll just say that's my favorite one. Boom. There you go. I don't know what the draw of One for All is. I think it's mostly for like haha YouTube.
It's fun combos. It's just like goofy. And it's fast, right? It's just like
is it that much faster? Is the game like sped up?
I mean, I just think it ends more quickly. I don't know if it actually.
No one has any wave clear and stuff. Like there's 5 Blitzcranks running around. You know, like you fall behind, game's over. Yeah. I can't believe Kobe's like, I don't get it.
Kobe.
I mean, I'm just being honest here, Mark. I'm
old man.
Okay. One for
these goddamn
one for all
kids and their
probably,
One for All in their Fortnite.
It's my least played for fun mode of any of them, and I don't play a whole bunch of the extra for fun modes.
I think the Poro King one is the worst one.
Yeah, I'm mostly playing competitive, but things like what was the one that's actually super fast that has like prize fight and all? No, the prize fight, like the other map.
Nexus Blitz.
Yeah. Like that one, I get it. I'm like, it's way faster. You have all these little cool mini games and stuff. There's like a whole bunch that you want to get into there with. It's like a party game with a bunch of different people.
You know what? Since we're on tangent mode, do you guys remember how One for All came about? Do you remember how it was a glitch on the client that allowed you to make custom games that allowed you to lock in the same champion?
Nope.
That's where it came from. It was this like I think it was like an experimental mode or something that like you could kind of get, and someone found a way to like get the client to load it for people in custom games. I remember when this came out, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" And it was totally bugged because like it wasn't really supposed to work. So like Zed, if you play with Zed, everyone would use the same shadow. You could only put one shadow out because it was only coded to ever have one Zed on a team. And that was the shadow for the team. And everyone could swap to it, and everyone would shoot Qs and Es out of it. It was the funniest shit back in the day, how jank and buggy all of it was. But it was incredible when it happened because it felt like you just discovered this thing, and so many were playing it. So many people were just spamming that game.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, that'll wrap it up for the spring split. It's over. Thank you, Honda, for making this episode possible, for making this whole show possible. And remember, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. Sub to the YouTube, youtube.com/LCS. You can also send us your questions on Twitter, #TheDiveLOL. Send us the voice messages on the Anchor.fm page. Leave us the Apple Podcast reviews. We appreciate everyone who has been doing that so far. It does help us out. The Mid-Season Invitational kicks off May 6th. We'll be on hiatus for the next 2 weeks, but we'll be back on May 4th with our episode. And yeah, then we'll be letting you know what we think about MSI. See you then.